Hey guys, welcome back to robotics. So this is an exciting day. What we're going to be doing is we will be converting our plate. So this guy here, last semester we spent a lot of time working with these three motors and adding pencils to it, using tape, and maybe even glue if you had it, to make a 3-axis robot arm. So the meaning of that was for us to kind of get a feel of how motors are connected and how they interact with one another, and how to program them. And so now that we have those basics, what we're going to do now is actually build a robot arm with 4 motors rather than 3, and we're going to be using laser cut parts. So that's what you see here in the screenshot. And I'm going to talk about these parts a little bit. Now, before we do that though, we're going to have to salvage these motors. So the first step, guys, is to go ahead and disassemble your motors. We're going to want to end up, take these 3 out and end up with this. And also you're going to want to keep your couplings. All right, the couplings, just as a reminder, is they're these little propeller things. We're going to be needing these as well. Be careful when you're doing this. If you did a good job of solidifying everything, if you're not careful, you might bend the motors beyond 180 degrees and could possibly damage your motors. So please be careful when doing that, because your robot needs 4 motors in order to operate fully. And so hopefully you don't lose one of your motors during the process. Now we have 3 on the paper plate one. There's going to be 1 extra motor that you're going to find in the kit that you received. Okay, so I'm going to kind of jump ahead. So go ahead. I'm going to assume that you guys can go ahead and take off those motors. All right, so I'm going to move this to the side. And I'm going to transition here. Okay, so there are a lot of parts that are a part of this robot arm. All right, so the first thing that I kind of want to point out here is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 motors, so it's a 4-axis robot. You might see the word, you may have seen it already in some of the curriculum. I might have mentioned it, but you'll see something like this: 4DOF. 4DOF. This means degree of freedom. I'm trying to write it down this way. Okay, 4 degrees of freedom. That means the 4 motors allow the robot to move in 4 different ways. All right, so if it was only 3 motors, it would be 3 degrees of freedom. If it was 2 motors, it would be 2 degrees of freedom. All right, now these 4 motors, they're going to be doing 4 different things. And we'll go over in more detail further on as we start building. Today, we're going to be working with the base of the robot, okay? And these other motors are going to be the other parts. But today, we're just going to be worried about 1 motor. Now, as you're looking at this, you might say, well, which motor? I have 4 motors. Which one is the base motor? Which one is not the base motor? It doesn't really matter. They're all the same. So it's just basically pick a motor, and that's going to be your base motor. All right, the next thing that I want to mention here is that you see all these parts here, and let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay, so all of these bolts and nuts here, there's a lot going on here. If we don't organize this, if we're not sure which is which, we could get messed up here. So I want to go just talk about what these are. Okay. First thing is, let me just tell you the name of this long one here. So the longest screw is called M3 by 20. Okay, that's these long ones, and you should have 6 of them. So M stands for metric. Okay, so metric, let me just write that here. Metric means the standard of measurements. So we're talking about millimeters, centimeters instead of inches and feet. Okay, so now M3, this means the 3 here means that the diameter of the screw is 3 millimeters. Okay, now one thing you might ask, well, why 3? Why M3? Well, these holes, these holes where these screws will go into, like this one, like this one, like these holes have a 3 millimeter diameter. So that's why they fit perfectly in there, okay? Okay, and then what does the 20 mean? The 20 has to do with the length here. Okay, so the longest screw is 20 millimeters long. So when I say let's get our M3 20 screws, you're gonna know what it is now. Okay, now let me show you something here. Another way to check. Okay, so if you're not sure what screw you have, you can get a ruler like this. So this ruler has inches on one side. I know it's upside down right here, and then it has millimeters up here. So we want to make sure your ruler has millimeters on there. And so I have a bunch of screws. I just grab the longest one, and if we measure, check it out. Exactly, the 2 there means 2 centimeters, which is the same as 20 millimeters. So this is my M320. Okay. Now, if we keep on going, you can see that there are some other ones. I have these screws. These are these right here. I've got my pointer right here. So these are the second longest, and if I measure it, these are about 12 millimeters. Okay, so the second longest will be M312. All right, and then we've got the third longest, M3. They're all M3. Let's see, what do you think it is? 10. M3 10. And then we have all these. Let me move this one here. All of these are the same. There's a whole bunch of these. These are going to be, looks like M36. Okay. And then let me move this so that we can all see here. And then these guys are the smallest. They're probably like 3 or something. Let's see. M3 about 5. Maybe this one was a little bit longer. Yeah, the other one was like M3 8. This one's like M3 8. Okay, let me change that. Okay, and then the smallest one is M3 5. All these M3 5. Okay, so now we have a grid of, okay, how does this all work? What the lengths are. So when I say M3 whatever, we know what screw we're using. All right, so go ahead and lay out your screws, and then do your best not to lose anything. All right, because these screws, they may be easy to lose, and then if you have the wrong screw, your robot won't be able to come together quite right. All right, so then the last thing I want to talk about are these nuts here. So the nuts and screws, or nuts and bolts, they go together. They're fasteners, all right? Now these are M3 nuts, all right? M3, a nut goes with an M3 bolt, all right? They have to match so that they can fasten together. Now, you might be wondering what's so important about this. Really interesting story. This is no joke. I know someone who finished a master's degree from a famous college. I won't say which college it is, but they have a very good football team, and they are in Los Angeles. But a very famous college. They with a mechanical engineering master's degree. They graduated and went into their first job as a mechanical engineer, and they didn't know how to use screws. And if you just think about that, it's pretty crazy, right? You would think that you would learn how to use screws all the way through by the time you went through mechanical engineering. But one of the things, and is a good friend of mine, is he was just saying that, a lot of times in school, they don't teach you this stuff, like how to use screws, because when you're at your job building a robot and your boss says, hey, we need some, get an M3 screw and then get the matching nut, or we need an M2 on this, M5. If you've never used those things before, you're gonna say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so now, since you guys know a little bit about this, what M means metric. So you're talking about millimeters, centimeters. You're not talking about inches in feet and that kind of thing. So now you have some context. That's why it's important. I want to teach you guys some of this basic mechanics stuff. All right. So now that we have that, I'm going to move this back over. All right, and let's zoom out here. Oh, let's undo that. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is we want to get a base motor. So we got to get a base motor right here, okay? And you know what? Let me circle it with blue. Maybe that's so. We got to get one base motor right here, and we want to get a base motor mount, which is this guy right here. All right, and then we also want, let's see, we need some screws. Let me make sure that I don't want to tell you guys the wrong screw to grab. All right, so the screws that we need are the M310. So we're going to need 2 of these M310 screws. All right. So let me get my stuff here, and hopefully this works out. 1 second. Okay. So I have my servo motor here. I have my servo motor mount. Okay. And then I have my 2 M310 screws. Let's make sure it's 10. Yep, both of these are M310. Oh, I'm missing one more thing. Let me go back over there. I also need this little, we'll call it this little servo motor wedge piece. It kind of sandwiches the servo motor, okay? So make sure we grab those things, and here it is. All right, so what we got to do now is we have to put this through here. So that's easy enough, right? And then you're going to take your little wedge piece, I'm calling it, and feed this through. Okay, all the way through. And this should, once it gets, make sure you get that through there, then you're able to do one of these and kind of slip it on. Okay, this came off, that's okay. We're gonna fasten it later. And then go like this. All right, so now we have like a sandwich thing going. All right. Next is, okay, so next step, we gotta take our screw and then we have it face down like this. So the back of the motor should be facing up. Then we're gonna take this and then screw it in. All right, so we actually don't need a nut in this case because this base plate is gonna be self-tapping. What that means is that as you turn this screw, it's gonna eat in to the plastic here and then just fasten itself. So what you're gonna do is once you have it like that, you're gonna have to screw it in righty-tighty and it starts eating into it. Now this can be a little bit, okay, yeah, let's make sure it's straight. Okay, make sure it's straight and then go. Okay, now this can be a little bit challenging. It is possible with this little screwdriver. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit challenging. Your little fingers might get sore. So just for the sake of time on the video, if you have a bigger screwdriver, go for it. Might make your life easier. If not, you can still do it with this, but you know your fingers might get a little bit sore. So, but if you a bigger screwdriver, you keep going. Now, how far do you go? All you need to do is make sure, you see it's coming up. This is the top of the M310 screw. Once it's flush, like flat against the surface here, we're done. You don't need to go all the way through. If you go all the way through, you might actually end up cracking this this little wedge here, which is not going to be good. Okay, so I'm going to go and almost. Okay. All right, and then we do the other side, same thing. All right. And if you don't get it all the way through, it's okay, but just make sure it's tight. So you see mine is still wiggling a little bit, so we need to get a little bit more in there. Still a little bit more for me. Still a little bit more. Going. Okay, so I'm pretty good here. All right, and you can see the top of the screws, it's flush against it. All right, so that's good. Now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get this big base plate. Okay, so going back to our drawing here, that's gonna be this guy right here. We're gonna get this big base plate, and then we also want these M320 screws. We want 4 of these. These are kind of the longest ones, and then we're gonna need some of these M3 nuts as well, 4 of them. So 4 M3 nuts, 4 M3 by 20 screws here. All right, let's come back. All right, so here's my base plate. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the M320s. just to make sure. Yep, that looks good. And then 4 of the M3 nuts here. All right, so what's going to happen? Let me put these together. So what's going to happen is that this is going to sit on top like this. All right, let me show you from the side view. See, it's going to be like this. Actually, these wires will go through here, and then it's going to be like that. Now it has to be raised up somehow, right? Well, that's what these 4 screws are for. So this is going to go through here, through the bottom. All right, and then the screw is going to go screw on top of it. And you can kind of just guide. I just want to show you for a second, okay? So that way this is now stable, right? It's on here, and you can tighten this. And then this is going to go on here. Now, how does that happen? Well, same thing as when we did with this. It's a self-tapping thing. So we need to screw this screw, into this hole right here. All right. So again, you could try with this. What I'll do is kind of get it started. Now, I found a little trick. I think it's a little more helpful. So instead of turning the nut all the way in, I'm going to just loosen it so that it's kind of like that far, okay? And then bring it back through. Now it'll be easier. Let's put this cable through the hole here to then take this part and then get it in there. Okay? So I even turned it a little bit with my finger just to get it started. And you can see it's already kind of going in there. Okay. And you know what? It might be good to just kind of get them all started. So let's go ahead and do that. The same thing here, just put the screw in. And then get that nut going there. Oh, again, we don't want to go all the way, right? Just kind of like that much is good, okay? Do it on this one as well. Okay, I'm showing you guys this whole process so that you can kind of get an idea of how long this will take. Okay, and I want you guys to have some patience. If you force it, that's really when let me move this, things break. All right, I mean I've done that before where I get frustrated and I kind of force it and it breaks. So try to fight that temptation. I'm gonna let you know ahead of time, it's gonna take a little strength and a little finesse, okay? So if you need to take a break, that's fine. The goal here is to get everything intact. All right, so you see I have everything, I got them all started. The benefit of that is that they're all sitting on top of the bolt and it's all even, all right? If you try to do one at a time, it's not gonna be even. And it's a little hard to screw in. Okay, so now that I have that, let's kind of get all 3 of them started. Even with your finger, just turn that one a little bit. Let's turn this one a little bit, and then this one. Turn this one a little bit. Okay, so it's mounted, but what we need to do is first we need to screw these in. Again, same thing as last time. We want the screw right there to be flush, okay? So let's do it. Here's the first one. Okay, and again, I'm going to use a bigger screwdriver. All right, and if you want to do like a little bit on each one and then kind of like rotate, that's not a bad idea as well. Okay. Oh, my screwdriver came loose here. That's all right. Okay. And kind of keep on going here. So the goal is that we want all four to be kind of flush. Now, a little thing here, guys, if it's super tight and it's not all the way flush for this part, it's actually going to be fine as long as it's tight, okay? So if you don't get it all the way, and also you want to make sure it's like even, okay? If this top part was totally slanted, then you definitely want to screw some of the slanted parts in or out to make sure it's level, okay? So I'm just going to leave it like that for now, but you guys can kind of mess with that, and then I'm going to push it out and see now it's tall, and that's kind of what we want, right? It's looking pretty good right now. Now, how do we keep it tall? Well, we got to take these nuts and you could just use your finger actually and turn them so that they go all the way down to the base, and then it'll sandwich it there. Okay, now when you do this, you want to make sure that the screws back here have been pushed all the way through. All right, and then same as this one. Okay. This one too, so you got a total of 4. And then this one. All right, so things are looking pretty good. A good test, guys, is you want to kind of touch this. If it wiggles at all, the motor or the base here, then you need to tighten some screws, okay? So mine feels pretty solid, so that's good. All right, so what we should do, guys, is now that we have this mounted, go ahead and see if you can, for this week, see if you can take this and go ahead and put a pencil on this again, and you should see this base should be pretty solid. The reason why that this thing is on this base is that it's supposed to be able to support the whole robot arm. So it should definitely be able to support a pencil. Whereas before, we didn't have this nice mount, right? And for example, another way to say this, right here, where's my base? My base is actually right here on my previous one. And there's actually my only base is basically the bottom of this servo motor connected to this plate, and some tape here that going around the top to solidify the connection. So it's not really a good base, right? And that's why it was all wobbly. Now check out the base that we have here now, okay? So I want you to experiment with that. See if you can take one of these servo motors, servo motor couplings, put a pencil on there, and then make it do some stuff. Do some windshield wiper action. You guys know how to control servos, so that shouldn't be an issue. So that would be the challenge for this week. Just build up to this part, and then see if it can handle a windshield wiper action with a pencil. All right, there you go. So this is the base motor of the robot arm. Again, doing it with this guy is gonna take a little patience, a little perseverance, but it's possible. So keep going. But then also, if you have a bigger screwdriver somewhere around the house, that's gonna help you out too. All right, have fun with this. I'll see you guys soon.